Welcome back to another episode of Positively Negative for the 27th of September 2018. Hello, Dales.
Hi, Dales. Welcome back to the Positively Negative podcast,
where we talk about life, love, and the pursuit of positivity in an occasionally negative world.
I'm Dayle.
And I'm Team Humble, and we're glad you're here.
Yeah, boy.
I bet that totally threw you, didn't it? Because you were like, I don't know this soundtrack and this intro at all, and you're still muted, by the way, so you need to unmute, otherwise we'll never be able to hear you ever again.
I'm glad we're here. That was the big takeaway for me from the intro. I'm glad we're here. How you doing?
Yeah. I'm good. It's 5:30 over here. What time is it there?
12:30.
I realise that with us saying like Dayle and Team Humble, it's kind of people who listen in on podcasts, just find a podcast from the store, would be like, what the hell are you, why are you using code names rather than real names? Like, who are you as people?
Oh, those are just one of our many code names.
It must seem very weird to people just falling in to the channel. So just to verify that, the reason why we use those nicknames is those are our usernames on a service that we've been using now for years, a couple of years, because we got fed up with Tumblr and WordPress and Medium and just loads of other services, Posterous, that, got shut down. I love Instagram. Oh, hello, we're Facebook. We're buying that. Oh, okay. I just got fed up of the acquisition until I was like blue in the face. It's like, I've got to move again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of one of the things that brought me back to the socials, as in, I'm really not very social at the moment at this age, in my current circumstances. I think I could be again, but after having 10 years of looking for that collaborative, that was the thing I was looking for in social more than anything, was collaboration, real, true collaboration. Like, what does that look like? How do we frame it? How do we make it work for everybody involved? Like, how do we have those proper debates? And how do we, not a race to the bottom or race to the top. It's sort of like a shared learning thing. And I waited for YouTube to do it. I was like, yeah, this could be awesome. Like, YouTube might do some interactive, like collaborative thing. That didn't happen. So we've been using the Steem blockchain, which not only is it a place where you can blog, but you can get incentivized for doing it. So you get Steem tokens, Steem power, which you can also then go and transfer to something like Bitcoin or whatever you want, really.
Like Chuck E. Cheese money. You get all your tickets and then you trade it in for a spider ring.
Sure. Well, it's been definitely a spider ring over the last couple of weeks.
Spider ring price, but it's been better. It's been better. But like, there is two things we want to talk about this week: the positively negative of two big things that happened on that network. Like most computer stuff, most technologies, there is issues and failures and breakages, and the Steem blockchain has been through a lot of that in the last couple of weeks. It is tsunami wave technology. It is always changing, ebbing and flowing. So therefore, there's always code changes and people infuriated that they want to push a new version of it. And a couple of things have happened in the last 2 weeks. One of them was quite big, that a application, a Steem app, what's called a dapp, running on top of the Steem blockchain, decided that its experiment, as they called it, with the Steem blockchain was done. A branded site called dayle, and obviously that kind of rattled a lot of people's cages, and admittedly so, and for good reason. And it was kind of interesting watching people's fallout to that, how they reacted about it. And I think you originally sort of sent me a message like, are you okay? Are you like upset by it? Kind of like, not as like a direct message, but like as a comment, like, you put all this effort in and yada, yada, yada. And, yeah, because I've been through that too. I've been through those lifespans.
Yeah. So. But here's the thing. I was invested in the idea of it. I was never invested in the team. Like I think that's a huge difference, right? After getting burnt so many times on other social network sites, I pretty much put a window of 24 months on everything, right? Could be the best product in the world, right? Chances are it could be bought up and sold to new owners within 24 months, right? So you have a 2-year window, and pretty much gospel to it over the last 10 years of things that I've enjoyed. 2-year window comes around, then it gets shuttered. Then the people who are like behind the scenes saying like, no, the community is not going to be affected. A year later, they're gone, right? Let's take Instagram recently. Oh, we're going to do some creative things. No, they're going to stay around long enough to make sure everybody knows how to operate the thing, and then they're out the door. It's just the way it works. That's in inverted commas business. So yeah, I wasn't upset necessarily for the service. I was upset for people who were reliant on the service. I know there's a lot of people who got so used to it. Might be their first rodeo for applications, web apps in general, like on the web. Oh my God, DLive's here and it's better than YouTube because it's decentralized, and we're not going to be content bashed for putting our favorite song on and XYZ. And then all of a sudden finding out that actually it was just an experiment, and they were going to always go to another chain, and it kind of pilfered the Steem coffers to run their experiment while secretly raising $20 million for investors. So
and it kind of felt like, and it kind of feels like when this happens a lot, that the community is just seen as like another metric or another asset that the startup has, and like those are real people. And maybe that's why I'm not a VC. Maybe that's why I'm not in the startup world. But to see a community of people who, your make or break is built on these people, in a lot of senses, that they're what brought you up, to realize that you as a community member of an application is just seen as either an asset on a spreadsheet that someone can show value to, or that you can just be moved to another platform because they can just say, oh, well, we're showing up with these many users, as a part of a portfolio piece. That's kind of a crappy feeling, I think for a lot of creators,
Yeah. I mean, as far as I could tell, what was disjointed for me in the whole, and first of all, let me backtrack a little bit. So DLive and DTube were two of my favorite kind of uploading video sites. Both could eventually do streaming and hosting, but I really liked DLive's uploading. And, I met a couple of the team, I had a couple of chats with them when they first started out, did a bunch of like tutorial videos, but I always knew that it would be a site where eventually, that content may disappear. And it was all very focused for time sensitive anyway. So like the videos that I would put on DLive were things to do top 10 that, if they expired, no big deal, because
daily.
If you watched it, you caught it, it's fine. Right. So I never put anything on there that I didn't want to lose. I think that's a huge thing. Like, don't ever put anything on a website that you cannot or never want to lose, or you want to have a look back on. And even YouTube, don't ever think that they won't just close your account and run away. I've been watching a lot of my old friends who were in that original strong of like 100 video blogger strong group get panicky after going all in on YouTube 3.5 years ago, and now being like, oh shit, like things are changing. My friend's account got shut down. It's been demonetized, yada, yada, yada. People, we get reliant on these things, and we don't
For sure.
think about the back end system. We think about the front end. We click on stuff. We don't think of the transaction, the data, the back end, the servers running, the bills. We don't think of that. We're like desensitized to it in some way. Because I think when social came along, we had so many choices of how to do it. And then that just like went stratospheric, it was like, oh, we have this now.
I think we approach a lot of apps the way that we approach things online as consumers. So you almost have because of the way that you're treated, because the startups are so desperate to have, to have users flooding on them so that they can make their marks for the next round of funding. You kind of approach these things like a consumer, like, well, if Pepsi stops making Pepsi, then I'll buy Coke, that you have the choice and you have the power, and that they're lucky to have you. And like, of course it's free. And it does come with a little bit of a sense of entitlement from the user side, because the way you're wooed onto the platform, because of the way that you are, the acquisition of you as a user probably went down. You were probably
made to feel like that was there to serve you, and that was the one purpose was to serve you. That's how apps get users. Do you know what I mean? So I think a lot of people don't make the association, unfortunately, until they get burned, that they as the users are not at the center of the equation most often for the people running the show.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's a number of as sustainable as I see sustainable, and as wasteful as I see it, in terms of, you know, this whole like VC mentality. It's kind of a locked in thing. You know, you buy in cheap, a couple of million, and then like flip it. Basically, it's like property in some ways. You know, do you have the head count? Do you have 100 million people? Awesome. Can you scale it? Awesome. Right. Then, you know, we'll sell it now. We'll sell the technology to somebody else who's got more money and a bigger company, and then they can take that brand and that technology and they can run with it. Which what tends to happen is it's buzzy for a while because everybody loves it. You know, I still don't know to this day what happened to Vine, or why they got rid of it, or why somebody why somebody didn't jump in and fix it. I have no idea. But like, I don't know. You become attached to these things. So I kind of deflected a lot of that with DLive at the beginning, but to go from a fully fledged blockchain that had 19 hard forks, been running for 24 months, to go to a blockchain that, okay, sounds good, looks good, has a high TPS report, which is not anything to do with office space, but transactions per second. That's the big buzzword right now, is, you know, transactions per second, because we want to make blockchains as fast as Visa or faster. That's when it starts to get really attractive to the banking industry. You know, that's where the big money like starts to roll in.
Okay, so for somebody who maybe is like not familiar with these kind of like systems and apps that we're talking about, if I could just maybe summarize it and you could tell me if I'm understanding it correctly, because I mean, I'm involved, but I wasn't as involved with DLive as you were, and I definitely wasn't part of the community. I had an awareness of them because I'm involved very heavily on Steem, but Steem it. But what it seemed like from an outsider, and maybe just correct me if I'm wrong, is that they showed up, they used the Steem blockchain. So the Steem blockchain is what is holding up this app. The app is built on top of it. So that's the foundation. And through that, they were able to access a bunch of users because Steem it already had, you know, an ample number of users. A community was based, but it's never separate, right? Like even Steem Hunt and Steem It's community, it's almost all overlap. You know, we're not at the place where we just have Steem Hunt users who are not even on Steem It. So there's a deep overlap of the communities, and for an app to decide, well, we're just done with the Steem blockchain, kind of made people feel like, so what? You just kind of like leached off the community. You got the delegation, you know, you got what you wanted to get from here so that you could build to the level that you knew you wanted to be at so that you could leave. Is that kind of the way that you interpret the way people felt, or the way that it went down? Because now they're going to another blockchain is really what
I can't speak. I can't speak for other people, but I can't speak for other people's like opinions and whatever on the rationale behind that. But all I can say is that I think a lot of people got on board DLive thinking, yes, decentralized live streaming makes sense. Great to see it on the blockchain. It's definitely one of the apps that, you know, we would have loved to have seen in a couple of years' time, but here it is early. That's great. And it was just chugging along. So YouTube was chugging along. And I think there is, like any kind of tribe culture, there was this kind of, you know, unconscious acknowledgement that you're Steemians now. Mm-hmm. Therefore, there is like an unwritten code of conduct. I would have thought, like, I'm sure that's where a lot of people are annoyed about it, because, you know, the Steem affects everybody. The price of Steem affects everybody. The way that you delegate it, the way that you pay it out, the way you upvote certain things in the community for the content that they make. There was probably a lot of people that thought a lot of the stuff was rubbish and therefore it shouldn't be upvoted. I respect that as well. You got to go through those steps to understand, you know, what that is. And the next step for me for DLive would have been, all right, how do you attract higher quality influencers? How do you make higher quality content? Do you educate people more? I kind of feel that they were presented with a situation where they were given they either managed to, I think this is the thing that I can't stand about business, is that if I have to do what people do in business just to acquire money and burn bridges at the same time, in the pursuit of some kind of maladjusted kind of purpose in life, then I will never run a startup, because the way it reads to me is that they ran it just to see if they could scale it. They scaled it. They did a bunch of outreach. They did all the proper things to run a startup. The one thing they didn't say is that they were eventually going to move to another chain. And I don't think they were going to move to another chain until they got to a point where it was like, you know what, our decentralized live streaming is actually the biggest decentralized streaming in the world. And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody used that to approach some investors. And then the investors were like, oh, right. So there's no other decentralized thing that exists. And it's like, this is worth something to us because we'll be first. Right. And that is the issue for me as well, because at that point, then you've already burnt the community, and you know you're burning the community, and it doesn't matter. And if it did matter, then it's fine, because I'm moving to another blockchain anyway.
Right. But that's the community that gave you that selling point in the first place. Very much so.
Irrelevant now.
Right. Well,
relevant now, because I've got the numbers, I've got the data. I got into a meeting room, and shook somebody's hand because I've managed to. And that's one of my biggest beefs about, like, nobody ever talks about burn rate. Nobody talks about the amount of money that's actually being spent, like, fucking trying to stitch all this shit together. You know, we've watched many TV programs where they're faking the numbers and the people coming in onto the platform. Yeah, we've got 1 million users, but 75 of them are actually drones or bots or whatever.
Yeah, or 30 of them are active.
I truly believe we live in an age now where it's all about the story. It's always all about how you can manipulate or present that story in a way. And they did it in that way, I think. I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever to go from a active blockchain with a active network, right, to a blockchain that, yeah, admittedly sounds great and is faster, but it doesn't have any of the things that the original community have got used to, the 7-day payouts, the amount of money that you would get, the routine that you get. And then to say, oh, by the way, you got to get your content in 24 hours, and we're going to start the testnet. Well, the testnet isn't a main net. The testnet is like, we're testing stuff out because we're not going to, we've got to make sure it works out.
Well, yeah.
So
I mean, I don't know. It sounded like the one of the head people from DLive is a team member and was always a team member on this other blockchain. And so what it kind of feels like is that they used Steem to grow to where they wanted to be, and then always kind of from the beginning had the intention of moving over because this was this person's side project. I don't know if that I can't speak to obviously anybody else's intention, but I think the fact that some people were so shocked.
If that's the case, then you open source what you've done up to now and allow somebody else to pick it up. You don't just like, you don't just land on like an insect and just like, like one of those fish that like follows dolphins around, underneath, like, I'll just slipstream off you for a bit, mate.
Yeah. They're basically just kind of like,
because you're not
parasites,
really at that point, you've shown your cards that you were never about community.
Exactly.
So you've misled people at that point. It's like a subterfuge, I guess.
Right. And I think people don't really. I think when people see decentralized and they see blockchain, there's so much feeling of like, oh, the new way, the better way, we're not going to be like the way that the rest of the world is, or this is going to be free. There's almost like this utopia feeling around blockchain technologies, because that's the way that they were always kind of branded, even from the early days of like Satoshi's vision for what Bitcoin should be. And so I think that when these type of businesses, and make no mistake, they're businesses, act like businesses, act like the Facebooks and act like the Instagrams, people are even feel a little bit more burnt by it generally, because it's like, wait a second, this is what like we're here to get away from. This is what we kind of like rejected about traditional, social media or traditional banking or, whatever version of an app that you're using. So I think it's important to remember that none of these people have your back. None of these people have vested interest in you, even if they're a blockchain, even if they're decentralized, you know?
Sure. And that's fine if that's what business is. If business is, yes, this doesn't serve us now and we need to swap it out. You know, like this blockchain, some of the excuses they put in the thing was like, you know, this blockchain doesn't do this, X, Y, Z. And, you know, if you look back onto our next topic in a bit about Mana, I mean, you could argue that in some ways they kind of predicted something that wasn't going to fit their headspace, their business model, you know, like their software. They probably thought, oh, this RC Mana stuff is going to affect, you know, upvoting and the way that we've configured our stuff. And I understand from a business perspective, it's like, it's just a technology then at that point. This technology is not serving us. We need to upgrade to another technology. You sit down with a bunch of guys who've come up with a really fast blockchain that competes with the likes of EOS and more, and supposedly has this fast like transactions per second. Like anybody who's wanting to scale from like, I don't know how many users they are, but let's say they have 10,000 users and then they want to scale to 100,000 and more. You're going to jump onto a technology that can hopefully handle that amount of transactions, right?
Right.
Especially when you're like trying to position yourself probably for esports and live streaming and, you know, trying to take a bit of market share away from Amazon and Twitch.
Right. Okay. So here's an idea. Here's like a thought that's kind of been like rolling around in my head kind of since I heard the news. I don't know if in what you have in the UK, that's like an equivalent, but in the States we have the BBB. It's called the Better Business Bureau. And they're a completely non-profit organization where people report their experiences with like businesses, even just small businesses. This guy, you know, said he was going to come paint my house. I signed a contract. He never showed. He ran away with my money, whatever. So, I mean, in the case of, I mean, I don't mean to just like sit here and drag DLive, but in the case of DLive, if that's what we're talking about, they get a new blockchain. They're looking for new users, and you know, let's say they launch a huge campaign, huge marketing social media campaign to get all these new users. Like, I wonder if there would be a benefit to having like a blockchain or an ICO Better Business Bureau, something that's out there where somebody can say like, okay, wow, this looks really nice, but no one will ever really know the backstory of DLive. I mean, maybe because Steam has such a high search ranking. People have been writing about it.
Baba, how many public services do you know have enough talent to even run the public services that they need to at the level of today? The problem is that those kind of services never attract the right kind of talent for very long. They get headhunted, they go somewhere else, they want to innovate, you know, like there's a culture in those things,
right?
That's the problem that we've got, is that innovation is moving. It's all just innovation now. Innovation is moving so fast now, it's like even legal is having to like build AI for legal cases, because they can't process them fast enough, because of very situations very much like this, you know?
Right. It's not a I don't know if I explain that it's not a branch of the government. It's not government run. It's just a nonprofit. It's just more like a charity. But like, but
so if you're really, really smart and technical, are you going to work for a nonprofit for more than a couple of years? No.
Yeah.
You're just not going to do it, Biza.
I just wish there was like some type of rating or ranking, or like like, you know how they do sustainability reports for companies. If there was like a community sustainability report, or a burn card or something that was like,
we used to like, have one of the,
I don't know, that kind of incentivizes people to not like just cut and run and then start over with a new community, you know, like the fact that those actions have consequences and they'll follow you.
I think that's on the Steam blockchain. I do personally. I think they should have a code of conduct for people building dapps. Right? If you're going to build on top of the Steam blockchain, that's like coming and bringing your own fucking cement and bricks to a building site. You know, it's my building site.
Yeah. And there's traffic, there's people, you know, like there's value to the community that's already there.
So I think there should be a code of conduct in terms of like, all right, if you're going to just come in for a certain amount of time, if you're going to run it as a test, you should tell people it's going to be a test. If you're going to take money off people, you're going to take delegation off people. You should be able, you know, if you're going to leave under these circumstances, don't make it legal, but just like have something. Have something to be like
be accountable to.
Something, yeah. Something. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't overly mad, because at the end of the day, it was like a free host. I got upvotes from them. Some of the community members are really cool. Like some of the team members are really cool. Every time I had a problem, it was really, you know, it's really cool. But from a technology point of view, as a technologist, I was like, you're going from a live blockchain to a test net? just because somebody's shook your hand and give you 20 million and the transactions per second is going to be really fast, but you're going to burn all, 50%, 25% of your community to build out this really fast DLive with nobody on
nobody to upload on.
Like, that's how I feel about it right now. I mean, I'm not sure if that's going to be the case. Maybe it won't be the case. Maybe they'll be able to use that with the biggest in the world spiel for a little while until people work out that, like the backstory. But here's another thing as well. Like, what is it with businesses that they think that people don't know the backstory about things? We have Quora, we have Reddit, we have all of these things, right? People not only are informed nowadays, but the way that you handle your business, or you've done business, or you've got to where you are today, it's all diggable. It's all trackable.
Well, yeah, and in our case, it's legitimately on the blockchain forever.
Yeah.
So like,
I don't
know. I think it's just like, I'm actually doing a search of DLive right now, just the word DLive in YouTube, to see kind of like what comes up, because I know that people have kind of been real angry about it. And I also know that Steemit is one of the, top 100 sites. So I don't know. A simple Google search will probably give you all you need to find. But also, I don't think the average person doesn't do that. You like I did it today. I downloaded that stupid browser because I thought it looked clean. I thought it looked nice. I saw it was promoted through Product Hunt, and it was on my Twitter timeline. And about 10 minutes later, I was trying the browser out. I didn't look at who the CEO was or what the company. I knew it was an offshoot of, or maybe possibly the same team as the Opera browser. But maybe that's something that, we need to just keep talking about and educate people about, which is like the team behind the thing matters, and their track record matters, and what they were before they rebranded from Musical.ly to TikTok or whatever, that matters. So maybe take a couple of minutes to research before you hit the download button, It didn't cost me anything to download and try this new browser out, but I texted you in about 5 minutes and I was like, nope, not for me. So
yeah, I don't know, man. I guess who you associate with and why is important. What technologies you follow and the way they got built is important. At least it is to me. And I'm not going to go and use the new version of DLive based on the fact that it's a different blockchain. I don't want to interact with another blockchain. I don't want to get to know another blockchain. I'm still trying to bloody work out and learn the one I'm on.
Yeah.
So like that's adding to the problem that I used to have, which was like, oh, I'll get Twitter. Oh, what's this? It's Instagram. Oh, but Pinterest. And then all of a sudden you have 20 bloody social media accounts with stuff on all of them. And then you're like, I don't know where to post. Yeah. I don't want to move. I don't want to. I shouldn't have to, as a community member, move and then be like, oh, right, so there's this thing called Lino tokens and it doesn't work as it did before. And you want me to come over there and just trust you?
Right.
It doesn't work like that, fam. No. It doesn't work like that,
fam. Fam.
Not
fam.
For me. Not for me. Anyway, we're 30 minutes in. I want to switch it up and talk about another thing that's happened recently. And I know this is all negative, but there is some positives at the end of this.
Yeah.
At least I feel there is, and opportunities too.
Negative for a long-term positive. It's like ripping the Band-Aid off. You can't live with the Band-Aid on there for the rest of your life. What are you going to walk down the aisle with the Band-Aid from when you were 6? No, the Band-Aid's got to come off. It's going to hurt a little bit, but we're going to be all right. And we're going to help each other through it, and we're going to support each other, and everything's going to be fine.
She always ends up like that near the end of it. Always like always at the end.
No, it's gonna be good. Yeah.
Leading up to it. So last 48 hours ago, we had probably beginning of the week now. It's Thursday now, but beginning of the week, 25th, it was actually 2 days ago, we had the HF20 fork. Now, normally when hard forks happen, like activity happens, like price goes up, price goes down, like just stuff happens on the blockchain as well. Everybody's trying to get adjusted. However, HF20 was such a big change. It's been normally before that, I think hard forks were like released every maybe 3 or 6 months as something drastic turned up. And this one has took
How would you explain a hard fork to like a 5-year-old? Sorry to interrupt, but like just before we get into it, like what's probably would you consider it like akin to an algorithm change if you're used to like Instagram, if that's something you're familiar with, or how would you explain that simply? Without going into the basics of like, if what it actually
the simple version I would say is like being on a motorway, right? And you have dual carriageway lanes, right? So you've got different bits of code running, different parts of the chain, and then you want to take a junction off to go towards another city, right, or another town. So like the indication and taking the road off that carriageway onto another carriageway heading towards another city is you're taking a fork in the road. And so what happens with a hard fork is that the code is fundamentally changed, or an algorithm is updated. Maybe the way that things are paid out, the algorithm or the maths behind that is changed. But it is such a big change that you have to physically start and stop a server with code running on it. And then everything that used to attach to that code, so like the apps, Steam Hunt or DTube and all those other, Steam Connect, all of those things have to be interoperable with it. And at times when you do a hard fork, those things can break and information then comes out that we've changed XYZ, and then that has to be changed, and then it's all up and running again. But it's a big change. It's not like a soft fork where it's like, oh, we don't have to shut anything down. We can like just roll it out to all the witnesses as a patch, which is like a little bit of code that you quickly start and stop it, and then the
like a
the
course
witness
correction. This is like
like a major
things.
like taking a disc out, like if you want to talk about like CDs, or discs, taking a CD out and putting another CD on and putting different music, a different style of music
without stopping the music playing for some reason somehow, because it has to still be up, in some sense. Like it all still has to be there, and you can't lose the stuff that was already posted. So it's a big undertaking.
It's a massive undertaking.
Like yeah.
It's a massive undertaking because it fundamentally changes the operation of how it works. So,
right.
Anyway,
so HF20
was it. HF20 is a big one. It's been like a year in the making. And I think a lot of people didn't want necessarily to push it through, but they kind of were signaled that it would slow down SMTs. And there was lots and lots of changes in there, which I don't know if it's more changes than been in other hard forks, because I've not gone past maybe 17 or 18. Maybe I was only around for like 16 or 17 or something like that. Maybe actually, maybe the only one I've ever been through was 18 or 19, maybe.
Really? I think we've been through 3 or 4, but you didn't feel any of them the way you feel this one in your day-to-day,
Well, that's because fundamentally a lot of the things that have been changed have either been swapped out completely with another way of working. For instance, the bandwidth has been replaced with voting mana and resource credits. So I think a lot of people and a lot of witnesses would have ideally liked to have done those in little chunks, like HF 20, 21, 22, 23, just like incrementally build it in and be like, oh, this is buggy, we need to fix it. Instead of like, here we go, oh shit, you posted yesterday and now you have no voting power, and don't worry, it'll be back in a week. It's like, that's a bit awkward.
Yeah.
So we're in Mana Gate at the moment, which is kind of like everybody's on a pause.
Mm-hmm.
Waiting for their voting power to recharge. But here's the interesting thing. That's kind of negative in itself, and it's probably a shock to the system, and loads of people are pissed about it because, like, what's the point in having Steam power if, like, you're a brand new user and you can't actually post anything? Like, what's the point in having an account if you can't post anything? That's an issue.
Right.
If you're a veteran Steamium and you've built up Steam power, then maybe if you were
post
maybe post if you weren't active in the last couple of days, which most bloggers are active on a day-to-day basis. Right. So I don't know anybody's got the argument of like, well, you shouldn't have been active the day before. That's ridiculous. But so we had a mana problem. The mana problem affects your upvoting, transfers, like commenting.
It just affects your ability to post and interact in general, to do your operations.
So that on top of DLive, on top of like having glitches in the blockchain or whatever, like software goes down, things don't work. Like I think when you use centralized platforms like Facebook and other things like that, then it's more obvious that, oh yeah, it'll be back in a bit. It'll be fine. I'll just leave it for a few hours. It'll be back up. Like they'll fix it. And that's because or have a pretty good understanding that those big companies were making millions. They don't want their services to be down because they're losing money, and they have like hundreds of engineers globally to fix it. Well, like with something cutting edge like a blockchain, there's witnesses and servers and people out there, but these people are not paid. These people are not, I mean, they're making money from
they're not on the payroll.
No, they're not on any payroll. I mean, Steem itself is like, just because one of the people, Ned, is the original part of a duo team who even came up with the Steem blockchain. I think Steem is only as respected as it is because of Ned being one of the original kind of founding fathers of that, if you like. And therefore, they've positioned themselves as a big player in the blockchain because they want to see the direction of it. And they have some pretty damn good engineers, or they've like surrounded themselves with people to do that.
Right.
But I do think there is like a us and them. Feels very much like a Matrix Neo situation where like Steem is, the digital city, and all the witnesses are really in Zion.
Yeah.
I feel like there's very much a machines versus Zion.
I feel like Glebe this week. I feel like, I don't know. It was hard. It was hard because that like, and and you trust the people. I think the fact that the witnesses are not on the payroll and they're actually technically elected by the community. So, the fact that they are in the position that they are in, but they're not staff. They're not, and they were, we assume like, appointed, quote unquote, by the community. They got a certain amount of votes of people who said this person should be in this, have this responsibility. I think that's a really good thing. And when those people reach a quote unquote consensus and say this is the best thing for all of us, then that's something that I personally have trust in at the minute. That's something that it's like, okay, fine. I don't understand all of the algorithms and the numbers behind everything, but if you say that this is what's going to keep us going longer term, this is a more responsible use of our resources, this is going to help us grow, then that's something that I can get behind, even though I felt like I was put into a corner and I couldn't post because I wasn't big enough.
Again, it's stories, isn't it?
And that hurt my feelings.
Again, it's the way you sell a story, right? It's the way you sell a story. It's like it's like the people who vote for certain politicians in because of the way they told the story. So what I've noticed in the last few days, especially listening in on little interviews and stuff like that, is there seems to be a divide and and there seems to be a lot of talent, but there's also a passion for this blockchain. I still feel like Steem and graphene and DPoS and all of the technologies that are being used to make this blockchain work, I feel like the technologists out there still love them and they still want to be part of it and they want to be around these people. So like, as much as there are issues and bugs and things go wrong, like there's still a love for the platform, what it brings. And so there's always going to be people who put in their time and not get paid to do it because they want to play with it, they want to keep it up, they want to use it, they've made friends there, right? So I think from that perspective, that's really shown a massive bright light on the blockchain for me in recent days, that people are motivated enough to want to stay up till whatever time in the morning to get their witness up. It becomes like a pride thing to make sure that they keep their position. Obviously they've got a vested interest. That wasn't meant to be a pun, by the way, but like they've got a vested interest in the blockchain. Probably their witness is making them a certain amount of money. Maybe it uses a lot of upvoting power to keep like people underneath in that community, like Utopia, for instance, going by the votes on their posts.
Well, and the witnesses are usually heavy hitters on the platform itself. So, a witness is a good position to be in if you want, your profile to have more exposure,
but even
from votes, etc.
Even from place 1 to 20, I feel like the people who are in the 30 to 40 don't really, I feel like there's a class structure even there. I feel like there's a class structure in the top 20. I think it's the top 20 that can do consensus anyway. So I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of interesting how it's all come apart. And, there's been a lot of money lost because of the Steem voting power has gone down. But here's the thing. Here's the good news is I actually think there's something that people are not talking about and should be talking about it. And it's made me look at the platform in a completely different way and actually respect the Steem blockchain a lot more than I did before. And that is the fact that I don't know of all the things that I've got annoyed about and said earlier on in this podcast about DLive and burning the runway and not having a clue as the burn rate of the money that gets spent by investment. Like, oh, we've raised 1.5 million and we have a chef who's here every day for the next 2 years. Like, surely that's not sustainable, is it?
Vegan Taco Tuesday.
But nobody talks about that because it's fine because we have investors. Investors means that we have tacos every day. Fine. So what I've seen and what I'm seeing and what I hope is Ned's vision, and everybody will turn around eventually in a year or 2 years time and be like, oh yeah, we've got that. Our blockchain has that. And something that we can be proud of is I feel like the resource credits are actually going to be beneficial to everybody across the board. Right now it sucks because you've got no mana and you can't post. I get it. It's buggy. Yeah. It needs to recharge, yada, yada, yada. But when you're posting every single day, and when you looked at the Steam D, there was still that bar there for bandwidth, but the bandwidth never dropped enough for it to interrupt what you wanted to do, right?
Right. So it's like you went around and you drove your car all day, and then in the middle of the night while you were sleeping, your dad came over and filled the tank a little bit every night. And so how does that affect your day-to-day life? You just keep doing what you're doing. You have no concept of like if your car's good on gas or if it's efficient or how much you're driving, because it's just there when you need it, right? It's seemingly endless supply. When in reality, that doesn't reflect reality.
Right. So in that sense, that makes me more confident for the long term of it, because I'd rather be using a platform that I understand or am aware of or care about even. Like, I want to care about the lifespan of the technology and the product. I want to know that the witnesses are getting fairly paid. I want to know that because we can't optimize things right now, Steam D can't be run multi-threaded. It can only run on one CPU, even though your machine's got 4 CPUs in it. So it's inefficient. You're buying more hardware to run some inefficient software, but you're willing to pay for it because at some point, hopefully somebody will fix it. Well, that resource management stuff is huge when you're scaling up a business, especially a decentralized business with lots of different servers and lots of different pricing, lots of different specifications. And also, the time involved to maintain those servers. So there's resource credits on the witness side. There's resource credits and costs for the whole blockchain. I want to see a page, like a status page, status.steemit.com, which gives me the cost right now of running the Steem blockchain. And I think a lot of people would be really surprised. I think a lot of people are really surprised because we don't get that with Tumblr. We don't get that with Facebook, but these things have a cost. They have fucking they have warehouses full of server racks.
There is a certain burden that's associated, and I think that's something that also I also think that there's a certain type of user right now on Steemit that is more of a quote unquote like a social media power user. There are people who just use it casually, but I would say the majority of the people who use Instagram and Facebook, they're there because their friends are there. They're going to post pictures of their kids, of their vacation. They're not quote unquote power users that are just they're blogging every day. They're making content. They're pushing. I think we have a high density of those type of people on the Steem blockchain. And those type of people are kind of the most, they bring the most value because they're creating things, but they're also taxing the system the most as well. So I think we have and I don't have any data to back that up, but from what I've seen, it just seems like there's a higher density of quote unquote power users on the Steem blockchain, maybe because there's a lot more creatives, or maybe that's because there's a financial incentive, right? And every other social media, we've been kind of trained and conditioned that the more you post, the more you put out, more, the algorithm will favor you. YouTube will push you to the top. Instagram will show your things higher in the timeline. And so, especially when you bring that type of behavior set to a blockchain, it's going to be, we ain't messing around here. It's going to be taxing, just like you said, there's going to be a cost to every operation, every comment, every post. So it was hard to see that, as you and I have been active on the platform for over 2 years now, that when the code originally got pushed, we were actually indebted a certain amount before everything leveled out. It was just part of the code, but we were indebted for everything we had ever actually even done. We didn't even get to start at zero. So we were oh my, like that really brought it home for me. I was like, whoa, okay, like I've done a lot here, and I haven't paid a cent into being on this at this place or participating here. So that cost has got to get paid somewhere.
Well, that's not strictly true. I mean, the Steam has an emission every day of Steam power, and like your posts get an incentive of that, and so we have earned money on the platform that's gone back into the platform. I haven't
put money out. I haven't paid to be here, meaning it hasn't come out of my pocket to keep these servers up. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right, but you've created stuff on the algorithm, which is a proof of brain algorithm. Therefore, like what you make is proof that you exist out there somewhere on planet Earth.
I hope so.
And the blockchain rewards you for it.
Right.
The thing is that I would say that blockchain technologies are not a well-formed, fully versed, 100% uptime. They don't come with any service level agreement. And if you want a social site that just is somewhere where you don't pay, you don't want to engage with the community, you just want to post something, and if you want to push and take, then maybe blockchains are not for you. And I think the resource credits, because the thing is with the Steam blockchain, you have to have a certain amount of skin in the game. And the skin in the game is like having some Steam power or having some investment in it, either created from inside of Steam or putting some into it to have some kind of, it's like getting seats in a football stadium. You can either sit at the bottom and get cheap tickets, or you can have a box at the top that's got all the amenities to it. It's the same thing with Steam power. The more Steam power that you have, the more kind of groundswell you have to do unfettered amounts of commenting, upvoting, interact with people. But that comes at a cost.
Right.
And now we have the resource
version of put your money where your mouth is, or put your money where your fingers are, typing on the keys.
And it makes sense because like every one of those transactions is a change on a blockchain that has to be synced with another witness server somewhere else in the world. And then it all has to keep it in sync. Right. So like, I feel like in some ways, yes, it was a bit of a shock, but hey, look, hard forks are always like this, always will be, like big changes to code bases. And they're always going to be ever evolving as well. There'll be a point where we'll start deploying AI to be like, based on market conditions. Should this be the resource credits that you get paid out, or should we slow it down because we need to roll out more infrastructure because of the speed between these times? Like it could get as dynamic as that. It could be like fully autonomous, your own Steam blockchain inserted on a chip under your skin that you sync in biometrically in the morning when you go into the office.
Don't get me started.
So I'm excited about it. About it. Yes, it sucks a little bit at the minute, but it is recharging. From a mod perspective, I've got to give a hat tip to Steam Hunt. They quickly, within 24 hours, did a little bit of UI, UX design work. They give everybody, all the mods, a bit more Steam power to speed up the process of the mana recharge.
Yeah, that was definitely appreciated.
So, I'm excited to see where it goes. So the positive out of it all is that if you want to use something, dynamic and changing with, consuming the latest and greatest ways of building these things out, then definitely use a blockchain because you'll learn a hell of a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But if you want to just be able to fire and forget and not have any kind of concern for the parent company, then you probably don't want to use a blockchain. You probably want to go and use Facebook or some other service that has already added investment money and they're trying to make it work by using outdated ways of revenue streams like advertising.
Yeah. Don't you want that fit tea? Don't you want that tea that's going to make you skinny, girl?
I definitely don't want it.
Yeah. Well, I did have, if you listen to this podcast, you might know that I have like a slight leaning toward conspiracy theories. And not that any of this sparked any conspiracy theory for me, but that like 24 hours where I felt like I had my hands tied behind my back and I couldn't post really made me think about how easily we could be in like this dystopian situation where your voice could very easily be removed because you don't have X amount of resource or Y amount of money or X amount of clout or followers. Like that, I think we take all of that so for granted that we even have a voice, that we can participate on these platforms. And it's like anything, you don't miss it until it's gone. You don't realize why you even had it in the first place until it's gone. So I don't know. I've been really thankful that we have a Steem It team, and we have witnesses that seem to really, like you said, really care about the platform, and they're trying to approach it from a sustainable and fair way. You know, there's also, you know, self upvoting from whales is kind of now a thing of the past. That's a huge move in bringing smaller accounts back up, because more of the resources are shared in the community. And a lot of those, like you said, top 20 witnesses are those whales. So not to say they were the ones upvoting themselves, but, you know, they're making choices that seem like they're for the good of everybody. And so I'm just happy to be here. Like, I'm just happy to be on a part of the Steem It community. And I'm appreciative that I don't have to pay for hosting.
I think a lot of those whales, and when you get to that degree where you're at the top, like most people, not most people, but I would say a large percentage of people I've ever met with money tend to want to then bring other people up, or to experience that money, or have those similar experiences, and kind of shocked when other people don't have those resources. So what I tend to see is that they then support like a more buoyant middle class, right? Because you bring in a more buoyant middle class, you're going to keep the numbers there, and the middle class is going to help like the ones below them come up. And so, like, I mean, and you also need retention in this day and age. Like that is the metric. You know, it's like, does it scale, and do you have the numbers? Do you have the head count? So, I mean, there's thousands of different iterations of styles of blockchain, but it's going to be who can tell the best story, who can retain the most users, and who can make them active, passionate, retained, engaged people while the technology falls away in the background, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm done for the day. That's it. I'm all done. I'm running the outro. I'm optimizing my time. Bye, everybody.
He's hard forking the podcast.
I'm hard forking. We're done. Bye. Thanks for spending time with us today. Subscribe with Pocket Casts and get notified right away.
And if you use Anchor FM, please feel free to call in and leave us a message. We'll try to reply in our next cast.
Stay positive.
And we'll speak to you soon.